I'm glad this one is one of the true ones.
By the way, he is beyond clear cut integrity. So that's not a question, Adrian. I got to show you something though. You said I'm beyond having babies. So when we launched this book, it came out on April 28th, Ask, which we'll talk about in one of the other shows, but we wrapped it in swaddling clothes, and Crystal and I are standing, and it's on YouTube now everywhere. And we said, we had a baby and this came out. I said, and we love it after 1 year. And it's got one of the highest ratings on YouTube, because you're right. Except in the Bible, where guys are 967 years old having babies, generally speaking, I'm 72 years young, because I'm going to live to be 127 with options for renewal. Generally speaking, people my age are not creating babies unless they're billionaires with 20-something, which I think is sort of strange, but that's not my lifestyle.
Have you ever been happier, though, than you are right now? Living life like a rock star with the woman that you love, doing what you're passionate about. Is there anything better than that?
No, I mean, when I went through the tortures of the damn first, I tried the wrong thing first, and then I wrote 267 things I needed into my ideal woman, the values, the virtues, the qualities, our systems had to be alike. She had to have her own business. She had to want to travel, because, you know, I've been to 80 countries and I want to keep doing that once COVID's gone. And I think we're at the very edges of getting rid of that, which we can talk to if you want. But we're at the most exciting time ever. If you're awake, if you're alive, if you're tapped in, tuned in, if you're right. I did all the chicken soup books, sold 500 million, you know, and the point is, the soul means that spark of life within that shows without. And a lot of people are muting their spirit. And what you and I are here to do is wake that up, make it alive, say, hey, look, there's going to be more opportunities than ever in human history.
So this show is around your story and a book in you, but that's wonderful. But what I want to generate more on this show than anything else is the fact that every one of you have a story already that will take people to their knees if you only take the time to listen to it. And you need to be able to get that in written form, but you have to have a story. Go out there and generate a great life from here on out. You're locked at home right now. There's no better time, right, Mark?
Exactly. The point is, I wrote a little book called You Have a Book in You. And then if they go to my website, markvictorhansen.com, we detail the whole course. But from a network marketing point of view, the guy I did seminars literally, as you know, around the world, Jim Rohn and I. Jim Rohn said, you know, back when he was in Idaho, he meets a guy named Earl Shelf. He says to him, look, I'm broke, and if I had money, then I would set goals. He said, no, you're broke because you don't have any written goals. And he said, well, show me what your net worth is. And the only net worth he has was the clothes on his body and the shoes. He said, that's okay to start there, but you got to have somewhere where you're going, a trajectory. And pretty soon Jim was enrolling people while he worked, and he made more on his part-time job than his main job. So that was the story. And then all of a sudden he made twice as much on his part-time job as his main job. He bought a new car, he bought new clothes, bought a new house, and that was the story. And he became the biggest at that one company at a time. And then, you know, Jim ultimately trained more network marketing people literally around the world. He was doing 10 different countries a month. And they asked me to take over his job when he died at 73. And I said, I don't want to be in 10 countries a month. I've done that. It's too much work.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
That's phenomenal. And Mark, talk about your story. I mean, it's just incredible, the number of people who you have surrounded yourself with over the years and the impact that you've had. How did that story come about? How did you live into this kind of greatness?
Okay, so I'd been in school, and luckily I got to apprentice or be a research assistant is the exact title at Southern Illinois University to the smartest guy around, Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, the guy who invented geodesic domes, wrote 40 books, had 15 doctorates at Harvard and stuff that when I heard him talk for the first time, he said, we're going to talk about cosmogony, cosmology, epistemology, synergetic, energetic geometry, cartography. He did 10 words. And Adrian, I don't know if you know the word sophomoric. Do you know that term? I was sophomoric, man. I had gone from failing out of school in the first quarter to straight A's, and because I worked my ass off, and I decided that it was important to get academics because my parents were sort of illiterate Danish people. I'm not putting them down. They just didn't have any shot at education coming from Denmark during World War II. So, right, all of a sudden, I thought I knew something. I'm listening to this guy, and there's 5,000 people in the audience. I'm just in awe, and I go beg to work for him, and he, for whatever reason, he took compassion on me. I tried to be Bucky, though, and I'm building geodesic domes. I'm 26 years old in New York. I built the Wall Street Racquet Club, botanical gardens, aviaries, homes, and I was building out of PVC plastic at the wrong time. The Arabs came along and said, we can write checks so big your bank's abounds. I thought, uh-oh. And I went bankrupt so fast I had to check a book of the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. And for 6 months, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag in front of another guy's room. And then one day it came to me, I want to be a speaker. I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. I went down to my 3 roommates. By that time, I'm living in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. I said, any of you guys know anyone that's young, that's not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not a famous person, that's speaking? And he said, yeah. Here's my ticket. There's a young kid talking, a few years older than you, out in Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. Chip Collins. I went out and for 3 hours, he mesmerized me. I just went, oh my God. And that's what this network marketing is about. There are a lot of great speakers that will elevate you. A lot of speakers that will wake you up to your talent, your skills, your abilities that you did not know you had. Anyhow, I went up to Chip and I shook his hand. I said, teach me how to do it. He said, kid, make you 1 in 1,000 chance you'll make it, but I'll let you. I asked him, can I take you to lunch? Long story short, he said, stay out of real estate, you do life insurance, and that's where I started, and I went on to network marketing. But he said, I did the life insurance, and I had 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years, because if you're going to work, take massive action. I was talking as early as 6 in the morning, 10, selling seminars in between as late as 9 o'clock at night, and loved it. But they said, you got to have that story in a book, back to what Tom said. And the first book I wrote was not this one, but it was called Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. And I was making about 75 grand as a speaker. Now suddenly, it is 1974, I'm suddenly selling 20,000 books at $10 each. I made $200,000. I tripled my income. And so I started doing the talk just like Jim Rohn's, and I didn't even know him then, but how to triple your income, double your time off and triple your income. And the talks just went crazy. So that's where I started.
Wow. So got an incredible mentor, kind of went off on your own and totally fell on your face and picked yourself went and figured it out and took massive action to get there.
Yeah, and then what happens is once you're starting to talk, I got invited to do every one of the network marketing companies, everybody. I name, is it okay to name on the show or not?
Of course, name.
I mean, I did everybody, Amway, Shackley, Coppercraft Guild. I did all of them because they needed somebody that was inspirational, educational, motivational, uplifting. And Mary Kay Cosmetics, I was doing, I remember the first talk I did for her in New Jersey. She and I were sitting together, and she said it's better to wear out than rust out, because she was a senior. And she said she was giving away pins to some woman who'd earned $3 the night before. And I thought, $3? She said, look, you can't judge it by that. And then I learned, Bob Schuller says anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but nobody can count the apples in a seed, right? You can build an apple tree, an apple forest, an apple orchard. And one of the things I've been asked to write is a movie about Johnette Appleseed, that says that she finished Johnny Appleseed's deal where he planted trees from New York to Ohio. What if we literally planted 18 billion trees and stopped all pollution in the world, which we could do, and then everybody would have fresh fruit, an apple a day, which everybody in network marketing knows that's one of the good things to do.
Wow, what was that? I've never heard that quote before. That is really powerful.
At my age, I like it's better to wear out than rust out. That resonates more for me.
Well, just as long as you're saying that, let me just say that I did a book with Art Linkletter, who was 96 at the time, and called How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life. He's the guy who created for Adrian hula hoop. He was our ambassador to Australia. He saw the Aboriginals out in the wilderness, taking green twigs, tying them together. Instead of rolling them like everybody else had, they did it around their body and did a hula hoop, brought it back, and he had 3 TV shows, Kids Say the Darndest Things, People Are Funny, and House Party. And at the time, you could walk from ABC to NBC to CBS in New York. That'll never happen again. Now that we've got 500 or 1,000 radio TV stations, channels. Anyhow, but he sold $2 billion and made $2 billion in hula hoop. I mean, for sure, Tom and I remember who Art Linkletter was. I mean,
Actually interviewed you two nuts on a show. I had
oh
you.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was.
And you got to say that was one of the funniest shows you ever did because he's funny.
He was 94 and he just started a solar company. You were absolutely on fire. You two together were magic. And he gave me his home phone number. And so I had, after he passed away, I still had his voicemail. And I would listen to that on occasion just to inspire me because the guy was such an amazing man.
Oh, he was funny. He was light. He was bright. Right before he passed away, you know, his wife had Alzheimer's, so he said, you know, she died, so he said, she's too important to me not to die, but she called up and said, I want you to bring Mark, your whole family. So Crystal and I brought all of our kids up to his house, spend a day with him, and it was just, the guy is just a heavenly, generous, good-spirited, wonderful guy that wanted to help make the world work like I do, and you do.
Horatio Alger Award. Mark.
Well, he and I were both Horatio Alger Award winners. For those of you who don't know what it means, go type it in. But what it means is you went from rags to riches and been excessively philanthropic. And every year we meet for a week. And we have 10 new inductees a year in the U.S. Supreme Court. You get a gold medal from Judge Clarence Thomas and one international. And it's got everybody from Oprah. In my class was Tom Selleck. And the thing that I love Magnum PI at the time. And Selleck and I are in the back room, and he said, look, Mark, I'm always reading somebody else's script. I don't write my own script. Would you help me? And I'm going, I'm helping Magnum PI do a talk. You got to be kidding me. This is too good. And we had into class, because you're in Colorado, a little guy that's unknown to the world, Philip Onschutz. Do you remember that name?
I know him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but here's a guy who started in a railroad business and then did cable and then does value network. And so I said, look, Phil, when you're ready to write a book, you know, I'd love to help you. He says, look, Mark, if I'm ever going to write one, I really want to have your help. So and I won't go into that story, but it's fascinating. A la Adrian's question, you and I are here to meet a lot of people. So one of the first books I wrote was called Future Diary. And I said, you ought to write a list of 200 people you want to spend time with, play with, grow with, and be expanded by.
I want to take a hard break because I don't want to lose this in the commercial. We'll be back right after this on the Genesis Communication Network. We're back. Don't talk about that. We want to talk. This is the commercial. So what's going on here for everybody listening is we're on. What am I doing, Jason? What's wrong?
Turn the volume up on the mic.
Oh,
okay.
So on the engineer's telling us to move a button. Thank you. Okay, so the name of the game, everybody, is during these commercials, he's our sponsor. And then we're going back to regular radio right now, and we'll be back on the air. But I want to talk about what Mark's point was because it was very, very important. So, Adrian, what's going on?
Yeah, this is so exciting. I want to pull this into the radio show too, but I love the book that we're talking about today. And one of the things that's so powerful is that writing a book is kind of about writing a book, but it's really about it's about all the things that go around that. You're going into the book business. And I think that's, whether it's a book or anything else, that's true of everything, that it's really, are you the kind of person who is going to be successful in whatever endeavor you're going to go into? And in Mark's case, there's nobody better to tell you how to write a book and how to do that, but those principles apply everywhere. And one of the things that we're doing with contact mapping is that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to show community and show our members, how do you become a person of incredible influence, of incredible value, and somebody that unlocks opportunity for yourself and for everybody else around you in everything that you do. And the most fundamental way to do that, in my opinion, is relationships. And so talk about that. Let me know if you disagree, but talk about that, Mark, and how you see that playing into the successes that you've been able to create in your career.
Well, obviously the wisest man of all time, Solomon, in Psalm 72 said, you're here to be an influencer of influencers. Now, all of us have some influence. We got an influence with ourselves or with a friend or with your spouse or with your kids or grandkids. Point is, we're supposed to grow that influence, and that's what you're really talking to here. You can start being nobody from nowhere with nothing, and the first thing you got to do is make a decision, input it into your subconscious, which will make the provision. And what I was saying is you ought to write a list of 200 people you want to spend time with, play with, grow with, be expanded by. And today, given the internet and given contact mapping, get a picture of you next to that person, and what it does is the law of attraction will have you synchronize inevitably and ultimately one way or another with them in time and space in ways almost unknown to us.
How cool is that? And I mean, you embody that too. I think that's a bit you have done.
It's my only secret weapon. I did it intuitively. I didn't do it as brilliantly as he spoke it.
He understands the
I have no idea,
underpinnings, but
that's why I
stumbled into that bar.
That's exactly.
Well, just Tom and I are introducing different people to each other. Like he's introduced me to other radio shows already, and I'm going to go on them and schedule. And the beautiful thing is I've introduced Tom to people like Mitzi Perdue with Perdue Chicken. She only does 22 million chickens a week, so she might be able to have enough for lunch tomorrow. But the point is, she is one of the more brilliant women of the whole planet. And I've got some other people that'll take contact mapping to where you want to go. I got Joe Soto calling you, who's one of the biggest guys ever and makes money at levels you can't even believe as a kid like you, right? I mean, and I did a book called The Richest Kids in America, where I interviewed the kids that all made $1 million before they were 19, and thought, wow, this is so cool, because I wish I had that book, because I would have wanted to do that.
Wow.
That is crazy. Now, do you know Marshall Thurber?
Marshall and I have been friends he was with Bucky. He rebuilt San Francisco.
Thank you. So all I had to do was pop in Bucky Fuller just now, and 2 names popped up. 3 actually: Robert Kiyosaki, Marshall Thurber, and a guy named J.W. Wilson.
Yep.
It's just crazy how we're all connected if we take the time to just actually contact map things, right?
Exactly.
Back on the air?
Yep.
All right, we're back. Did they go to a website real quick?
Go to contactmapping.com.
Good boy. All right, we're coming back right now. And we're back. It's the Network Marketing Leadership Show with Tom Chenault, Adrian Chenault. And today we have got the guy. We've got Mark Victor Hansen, and I've been looking for him for a very, very long time. I love him, and he has made a huge impact in my life. He never even knew it. The 1 Minute Millionaire. I've read a lot of his books, but my Bible as an early network marketer was the 1 Minute Millionaire, because it was such an unbelievable story of redemption. But Mark can see something and put it on a piece of paper, and that's magic. And what he wants to do today is teach us to do that. Before that, we're going back to, we were talking about Philip Anschutz and what was going on there. I knew him when he's a big Christian guy, and he would haul a whole bunch of people up to Greeley, and we'd get to live in his railroad cars in his mansion for a few days and go hunting and things like that. It was absolutely glorious with a guy named Bo Mitchell many, many years ago. So great life. I mean, you have done it, and it's all because of your connections. Well, you've got the brains, but I've only done it with my connections. I know people, and it's my secret weapon, and your book talks about that brilliantly, sir. So here we go.
Well, here's the deal. What a book does is it leverages your influence. It leverages your authority. It leverages you an expert. And obviously I wrote, you have a book in you, and the subtitle is Make Money with Your Story, because everyone's got a story, and it makes you this superstar professional. Because back when I wrote that first book, and I sold 20,000 copies from little bitty platforms, 6 people, 20 people, 10 people at a time, and every one of them wanted it signed. I said, this is my bestseller. I didn't say it was a national bestseller, a New York Times bestseller, an international bestseller, all of which I am now. Because all of us start with little seeds, and then you grow it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what happened is when we got turned down with Chicken Soup by 144 people, but we knew the stories worked, because I was at a giant church, 5,000 people in Kansas City, and I stood in front of this group. The guy sent it to us, and we put it in our Ask book, the story from Charlie Green. Charlie Green said, I couldn't believe it. You mesmerized the audience during your sermon, and then at the very end, what you did is you held up a thing and say, ladies and gentlemen, I got to ask you to pray for one thing. This is the book that nobody is willing to take, called Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack and I know it's going to be a bestseller. So what I want you to do is pray that we're going to sell 1 million copies at least of this. And more than that, what I want you to do is you have a little certificate on your chair. I don't want you to take away from the tithes, because I wrote a book, and everyone you got to call my Miracle of Tithing book. But I need you to fill out your name, address, phone number, and say, look, when the book comes out, I will buy a copy of the book. And he said, I couldn't believe it. All these people are so wowed. they all filled it out and said, there's a book that didn't even exist or a publisher that we didn't have yet. And you had the boldness, the courage, because we're supposed to step out courageously and believe what we're going to achieve before we can achieve it. Does that make sense?
Nothing but.
Wow. That's so, and those little, those seemingly little things that took a lot of courage, but, didn't take a lot of money, didn't take a huge amount of influence, didn't take any of those things, but you had the courage to say, come out here and step forward with me and say, I'll buy a book, and give me your contact information so that I actually can get back in touch with you when that book comes out. And oh, by the way, hey publisher, here's my list of all these people who have already committed to buying a book and I don't even have a book deal yet. Every one of us, if you've got hustle, could do some version of that same thing, right?
Exactly. Everyone, by the way, that's the other thing. Let me do the subset of what you just said. Everybody intrinsically has hustle if they know what they want in their heart and soul. And what I want to do, first of all, I wanted to be a great and inspiring speaker because I thought that was really important. And I love watching everybody. And I watch everybody, literally. I went to every seminar that exists. I can talk to that if you want. But second, I want to be world's best-selling author. And I really want to, I live by 3 principles. Whatever work I do has got to be unique. Like the 1 Minute Millionaire, which changed Tom's life, he just told me, and I didn't know that before now. We said, I want to create 1 million millionaires. Now that's $1 trillion worth of business, not for me, but for the people who read the book. And everyone's got one right, easy, perfect, acceptable way to them to become a millionaire. And network marketing is one of the things everyone ought to have in their toolbox. There's so many companies, and the number I know is 18,000. If it's higher or lower, you can change it. But a lot of good companies out there and some product that you could say, wow, this one's changing me. This one's healed me. This one's made me rich. This does this. There's all kinds of them. So unique, transformational. Your show is going to transform people because you can't look at Caterpillar and predict butterfly. And that's why on 1 Minute Millionaire, we put the butterfly, which is a universal symbol of freedom and illumination, because we're all here to get illuminated. That's why I love coming on Tom's show. And I think this is the 6th, 7th time I've been on one of his shows. And then last, it's inevitable. I believe it's inevitable that everybody's going to go write their book. That's why I wrote, you have a book in you. And I say, go to my website, watch the videos on it. So you stay inspired, stay enlightened, stay encouraged, because everybody that writes, and I'm asking you, you can write a whole book in just 22 minutes a day. And today, mini books are in, little books are in. And once you got the book, you can also do a documentary. And with your permission, I'll even talk to that quickly if you want.
Let's take a quick break. Documentary right afterward.
Yep.
This is the Genesis Communication Network. Thank you, Ted Anderson, for having us on for the last 15 years. We love you. We'll be back right after this.
All right. So I'm excited. This is a little bit longer commercial break, and I've got a fun one for you. So Elizabeth Larson, who is part of our contact mapping team, and she's watching this right now, she sends me a message the other day, and she is just the most incredible woman in the world. She onboards and shows contact mapping to everybody, and all the time we're sending her people. And so she messages me the other day, and she said, hey, there's these people, Mark and Crystal, that booked a session with me. Do you know them? And I can tell that name rings a bell, but she hadn't Googled it. She didn't know who it was who. And so I wrote back, are you prepared to poop emoji your pants, was my question. And she goes, yes. And I sent her the cover of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and she just had a heart attack because it was like 30 minutes before she was meeting you and Crystal. I didn't realize that when I did that, and she went, oh my God, I'm onboarding Mark Victor Hansen. So, but I understand you guys had a tremendous time. So talk about what you saw with contact mapping and just your experience getting onboarded the other day.
What happens is everybody gets lost in their contacts. Everybody takes a little business card, and what do? They put it in their desk, they put it in the wallet, they pull it in the folder, and they go, duh, who the hell is that person that I took that name from? I don't know who he or she is. I don't know where I met him, what I did. And it's even worse when you get your cell phone, if you don't have where you met them, what they did, what you said, how their kids are healthy, happy, loving. Like when Tom and I talked, he said, well, tell me about my kids. And unfortunately I couldn't. I can now, especially one. And the point is, that's why contact mapping is not good. It's a grand slam home run because everybody needs to do it, because your life is about relationship. And ask, we say, what's your relationship with yourself, with others, and with God? But the point here is we're saying, what is your relationship with all these people? And I'm on the telephone every day with a lot of people, not only with podcasts, but with business deals and with books and with other authors, trying to help get them to write their book. Like, they're just such great stories out there. Like, I can give you one if we got time. I don't know how much time we got in this break.
We got about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, so a great guy, Abe Willington, the biggest in the seminar business right now, that virtually in the world, I think. And Abe calls me up and he says, what would you say if some guy had a horrendous car accident? The doctor said, you'll never walk again, you'll never see again, you'll never love your wife again, on through the litany. And he said, what would you say about a guy who overcame all those things? I said, well, first of all, you ought to write a book, and the book should be called, and I've got a Guinness Book of Records for the best title selling ever, but it is called, I said, overcoming and being trashed and crashed to arriving. And he said, God, that is a great title. I said, well, it's yours. You write it. But I said, who is the person? He said, it's me. He said, well, I don't need to write a book. I said, here's why you write a book. This morning, my wife and I meditate and pray for an hour every day and together. And today we were reading Joel Osteen, and and I'm a close friend, but he's got a brother named Dr. Paul Osteen, who's a terrific surgeon. And 3 months a year he spends in Africa in remote villages healing people. Guy comes into the remote village. I told this guy, Abe, and he had an elephant had gored him with his tusk, and it went straight through his midsection. And Paul's in an inadequately outfitted operating room, and there's no blood available. So Paul checks his blood, and there's a blood match. So he goes, pulls 2 pints of his own blood and saves the guy's life. And I said, Abe, I get goosebumps telling you that. I said, Abe, what do you think about that story? He said, man, I love that story. I said, that's why you got to write your story. You understand, you're going to help. Everybody has a car accident during their life if they live long enough or drive enough, I think. And by the way, I don't want to have anybody have a car accident, but let me ask both of you. Tom, have you ever been in a car accident?
Heck yes.
Adrian, you ever been in a car accident?
Yep, absolutely.
And how old are you?
35.
So he's, relative to the two of us, he's a kid.
I'm very young.
But the point is that you need to write that to help people overcome it, because unfortunately there are some doctors that I would call voodoo doctors that say, you'll never walk again, you'll never talk again, you'll never see again because of that car accident. It said, Abe, you're running a giant enterprise here that's doing billions of dollars, and you need to write it. He said, well, I'm busy. I said, that's why you got to write it, because you are busy and you're not doing it for you. He said, what do you mean I'm not doing it for me? I said, you're going to learn by writing a book. You become wiser, you become more defined, you become more refined, but you source and serve the reader. Like out of Dr. Paul Osteen's story, a lot of things. Number one is you make enough money so you can go help somebody that can't help you, and you open up a whole karmic loop, a whole value loop. And that's what you're teaching here, is that what contact mapping is about is ask them what they need, because everyone needs something that you can supply. And the reason I was the best book speaker ever in history and did more talks, I've done now 7,000 professional high-paid talks, is that I always listen to the person, what they need, and I give them whatever they need. Whatever they need, because you and I have all these immense amount of contacts, we can get them to something that they need.
That is beautiful. All right, let's go back. Contactmapping.com, the Network Marketing Leader. Oh, wait 1 second. And we're back. It's the Network Marketing Leadership Show with Tom Chenault, Adrian Chenault. We've got Mark Victor Hansen. It has been the best show. We're in love with this guy. There is absolutely no doubt about it. We love you, Mark, and it's not like a superficial love. I get to interview everybody, as do you. You know everybody. And rarely do people walk their talk when people aren't looking, like they talk on the microphone or on the camera. And what I have known about Mark all these years and why I love him so much is who he is 24 hours a day, is who you're listening to and looking at right now. And I love that about him. What are you thinking so far?
I just love it. And I really want to dive into the book a little bit more deeply in this segment, because there is so much greatness there in telling your story, but then really in that business end of becoming an author and going into the book business. And so talk about that, why those two things are so closely intertwined and how important it is for you to have both of them in mind when you're trying to figure out if you should be writing a book.
Well, I just go to the first two chapters of You Have a Book in You. The first chapter is 101 reasons to write a book. Because all you need is one that lights the spark in you, right? It's a little spark that lights a big forest fire, or the raging fires, as we're doing this show they're having in California, that are 100% not contained. So it can take a little spark to turn you on. And what I am is a gadfly, and I don't care which one of the 101 reasons you pick, but you do it. Then number two, which fits your show and fits everybody here, is everyone needs to become a master at interviews. A master at interviews. And you say, well, why is that? Well, when Jack and I wrote, Chicken Soup for the Soul, the publisher said, well, now that we're taking it, Little Health Communications, we'll bring it out a year and a half from now. I go, a year and a half from now? Yikes. Jack and I just spent $180,000 each to get here. And our respective wives at the time were not very happy with the idea after all those rejection slips piled up, pink slips they were. I said, well, what are you going to do? And I trained one of the markets. I did 4 markets. One was network marketing, one's churches. And I was really big in the chiropractic market. And chiropractic had just taken a crash because the life insurance business, the insurance industry had been pulled. The Clintons said, no more money to chiropractors. So they're all broke because they weren't used to running a cash practice. I knew the 28 doctors, one in Denver. I don't know if you've ever interviewed Dr. Dennis Nikitow, but Nikitow made over $1 million a year because he said, I carry rubber bands. Now, he said, if I put a rubber band around my index finger like this, and he had everybody do it, what colors will it turn, Adrian? Real quick, what color?
Red.
Red, then purple, then blue, then finally black, then it falls off dead.
Yep.
And he said, so can a medical doctor get rid of that? No. Can a PT, a physical therapist? No. Can a massage therapist? No. There's only one person that can get rid of a subluxation. That is a chiropractor, a DC, a doctor of cause. And he was making $1 million a year. So all of a sudden I came up with this idea. I'll interview the 21 best doctors that are making over $1 million a year with cash practices. Well, I did it in 1 week during December. The next week I edited it, turned into a little package, said how to do $1 million in cash practices a year. And then I interviewed all the assistants to the doctors, and everybody can do this in every field, right? Everybody you want to get to, you decide, and then you go after them, interview them, and then put together a package. Anyhow, I did how to hire a perfect money-making chiropractic assistant. That's the person that brings the patients in for the doctor. And I interviewed Nyari Cannon. I can go through all of it. But we made $3 million in a month because the doctors were all going out of business. Now, that was one thing. The second thing I did was Elizabeth Dole was head of the American Red Cross, which I think everybody ought to give blood. I'm sure you've had her on her show. She and her husband are delightful people. But she said, Mark, you have all these great ideas. You're an idea factory. I can't get blood. I said, we ought to go to the doctors. They see blood and guts every day. He said, I tried that. They won't do it. I said, well, look, I work with the chiropractors. Now, Adrian, you know math. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I take two negatives, right? Red Cross is out of blood. Chiropractors need new patients. So I said to the chiropractors, they're 77,000, seeing 25 million patients a month. Back then we could call people up. We called them up and we emailed them. It's front end of email. And I said, hey, look, I've never asked you all guys for one thing. Red Cross out of blood, call 800-GIVE-LIFE, get a blood mobile out to your practice, and call up every one of your inactive patients over 3 months and say, hey, Adrian, come in. I'm your doctor. Pretend I'm your DC. And I'm going to give you a free adjustment if you just give me a pint of blood. We got so much blood. We had 1.5 years worth of blood cryogenically frozen. She was totally blown away. I got a big award, and I got it with William Shatner and Lisa Gibbons in Washington, D.C. It was great fun. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, I define an entrepreneur, and Tom said my book helped him. An entrepreneur is a problem solver that makes a profit. An entrepreneur is a problem solver. You solve problems and you make a profit. And that's what all of you do in network marketing. You solve somebody's problem and you make a profit in a downline, sideline, success line, support line. I mean, some of you have different names, upline, round line, circle line, whatever you call it. I don't care what you call it. It's all back to what Tom and you were talking about, Adrian. It's a relationship circle.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody knows 250 people they don't even know they know. And the example is all you got to do is go to your cell phone, go to contacts, Go to the bottom of contacts and see how many names you've got. Have you ever had people do this, Tom? Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the bottom line is, how many contacts have I got right now? Wait, you just go to Z, and then you can go to the bottom real quick, and it says, I have 7,206 contacts in my cell phone.
There you go.
Everybody knows more people than they don't even know they know. But I'm asking you to prioritize it, which we can talk to that if you guys want, but contact mapping teaches all that. How many have you got, Tom?
14,288.
There you go. And Adrian, did you look at yours, or you don't have your cell phone there?
Right at about 3,000. And another little interesting side fact on that. So I've got 2992. When I started contact mapping 2.5 years ago, I had under 1,500. So I've doubled my list of people I really know in 2.5 years. And
what happened to your income during that time too?
we went way down because I'm starting.
He started a company.
Has no revenue hardly. My influence and what I will achieve as a result of that is staggering.
Inestimable, right?
Investment is immense.
It is what people call in highfalutin language. It's called relationship capital.
Yeah.
And Tom and I have infinite relationship capital, most of which, no offense intended, Tom, to either of us, but is unused or not adequately used. And I love this. All these people writing in, I got 3,000. Anyhow, and I don't know if that's on your screen too, but it's exciting that all that has happening, because every one of us has more contacts than we know. And we can't know when somebody's hurting and they desperately need a network marketing company. They desperately need what you offer. And it could be as simple as a smile. It could be as simple as a connection. It could be as simple as ideas change the world.
It's so unbelievably true. And
Mary has 5,813.
That's
so many.
cool.
Yeah.
So you talk about this. So I want to tie that back into the book, and I want to talk about this no matter whether you're doing network marketing, whether you're doing a book, wherever you are, if you have 5,000, great. If you have 500, fine. Wherever you are on this journey, how do you start to be proactive about turning your contacts into the path that's going to get you to that big dream you have to be a #1 best-selling author, to be on the stage at your network marketing conference being the top earner? How do you get from what feels to you like nowhere to that big somewhere you're trying to go?
4 quick little easy principles. You'll never forget them. You already know them. Number 1 is you got to know what you want. And if you want to be on the stage at that company, you got to write it down. Now, you also, almost every one of the network marketing companies has a magazine, and you got to cut out whoever's on top of that magazine. And the third one is visualizing, realizing. So figure out what you want. 2, put it in writing. Now, when you're putting in writing, you want to get a 3x5 index card. Everyone's got them in their house or office or business. And just write, I'm so happy and grateful. I am #1 in X company by recruiting and developing and training blank amount of people. I'm so happy and grateful, blah, blah, what you're going to do. In my case, I'm so happy and grateful that we're selling 1 million copies of this by doing 4 podcasts a day and talking to 1 million. We're talking to 100 million people by the end of this year, by January 25th. Most books are sold during Christmas, and the book's selling like crazy, and I signed it, my wife signed it. So number 1, you figure out what you want. 2, you put it in writing. 3, you visualize, realize, you get a picture of you in the back. 4, you internalize it by getting a team member. In my case, it's my wife is my best team member. In old days, it was Jack.
That is so big.
Now, do you still have a big relationship with Jack?
Yeah. We're great friends. By the way, he can't get rid of me. We're sort of stuck at the hip, having sold so many books and done so much together, and people said, you really know him? And I go, hell, we did everything together for 22 years. We'd be in New York ready to go on the Today Show. And you got to be on the Today Show at 5 a.m. to start it at 6. So that means you had to get up at 4 and get ready. And we were so exhausted. We got there about 11:30 at night, maybe bed. And we were so broke, we were sleeping in the same room. And he's in his little 3-piece suit with a red tie next to me like this, snoring away. And I said, Jack, you got to get up, Jack. If you want to be with Katie Couric this morning. He called me a bad word. I said, Jack, if you don't want to go, I'll do it alone.
So you guys used to hire publicists, and I used to be a big-time radio talk show host here in Colorado. I covered 89% of the stock market, looking down, 89% of the state of Colorado, looking down on the stock market for 3 hours a day live during prime time. And it was a crazy job. And a publicist called me and asked me to interview Jack. And I said I would be happy to do it. I was really, really pumped about it. And I spaced it out. And I never called him, and I never apologized, and I've never had him on the show. And it's one of my deep regrets. So as a favor to me, I would love to not necessarily get him on the show. I would like to have a phone number to apologize to the guy, because I totally blew that to smithereens and handled it with no class. And it's literally haunted me, and I've never cleaned that up. I've never even told you.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Never even told you. I'm embarrassed about it.
By the way, all of us have those kind of regrets that we didn't do it. And by the way, it's nice that you want to do it, because that's cleaning up your karma. Remember, love only has two aspects: givingness and forgivingness. And what you want to do is ask forgiveness to Jack. And I'm convinced, because I know how busy Jack is, not only does he not know it, but he doesn't remember it. And by the way, all the people that come up to me and said, will you forgive me for not taking your book? Because I'm one of the guys that turned you down. And I was in that group at Time Warner. I was in that group at Simon & Schuster that said, get out of here. Nobody buys short stories. If they bought short stories, we would sell short stories. And they said, now that you sold $500 million, I think I made a mistake. And then our agent I rarely say this, I won't say his name, but he fired us. He took us to everybody and said, this will never sell. You guys are not going to make it. And he fired us. That cost him at least 15 or 20 million bucks.
Whoa. Wow.
I had to tell it myself. That's what Adrian is saying, is you've got contact, relationship capital. You can do the business yourself. Like Tom and I didn't have anyone call you. You and I talked, and we just agreed to do it, did the dates. And Marianne finalized everything, because that's her job to do that. But it was wonderful.
Bingo, bango, bongo. Okay, let's take a break. We're coming back right after this on the Genesis Communication Network. We've got Mark Victor Hansen. Stick around.
That was so good.
You are the greatest, baby. That's all I can tell you. I don't even want to do commercials, because I like talking to him so much.
Good. Well,
I don't know if you want to put in your book, and those of you that are on commercial aren't hearing this on the radio, but not only having a great idea in your head, but having a circle of influence in the form of a social network or an email list or just influencers to drive out your great idea in your great book is critically important. And that's what people have to understand. You gave me an idea about a power company you've got, and I talked to you about Jerry Kalana, and I talked to you about New Reality. I mean, everything I look at how I'm going to help the guy across the table, and that's the way you live your life. My little boy Dominic, who's got some troubles going on, the first thing you said to me was, what's he passionate about? And I said, art. And you said, I'll find him the 3 best artists in the world to mentor him. That came out of your mouth so automatically, because that's the way you're wired. That's the way we all need to be wired. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
Absolutely, because you do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And the first artist I want you to have him talk to, once he's decided that's what he wants, is I own the company Natural Power Concepts, which you talked about, which everybody ought to go to Natural Power Concepts, watch our cool stuff. The guy's got the world's greatest surrealist fine artist is John Petrie. He's 76 now. He does, if you go to John Petrie, Pitre.com, you'll be blown away at this guy's artwork. I mean, it is, some of it's surreal, but it's extraordinary. I mean, you can see the guy is a massive talent, but he is like Leonardo da Vinci, which is what real art is about, is using your full brain, being what's called a polymath. A polymath is somebody that's interested in a multitude of subjects. Like that guy Abe I talked to earlier to you about, he said, I can't believe you have such a varied interest. Well, I said, everyone has a varied interest, but the trouble is we're all saying, well, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, a medical doctor, no. We're all here to study universe, one universe. It's not biology and chemistry. And so what art, I can make one telephone call and I guarantee your son will talk to John Petrie, and Petrie knows every other artist, as does Weiland, who's, I wrote 3 books with Weiland, the guy who's the world's greatest marine artist. And we painted 10 miles of the Great Wall of China. And Weiland, I'm on his board. And the first line I wrote is, let's make every drop of water a clean drop. and when during the China Olympics, back when we were getting along with China, we had 3 kids from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe painting with the world's greatest marine artist who makes $87 million a year, Wyland. And we'd done a book at that time, only one, called Chicken Soup for the Ocean Lover's Soul, because everyone's, if you've been to the ocean, I know in Colorado you don't have an ocean, you got lakes. And if you've been to the ocean and it's warm in the Caribbean or in Hawaii or in, you know, the Maldives, all the places I've been diving with Wyland, it just is wonderful. It's exciting. It's invigorating to swim with the sharks and swim with the manta rays and do night dives. And, you know, just there's so much life to live if you're awake, alive, and enthusiastic.
To be as alive as you are at 72 years young. And I mean, that's what it's all about. And it comes through, where are you most alive? You're alive talking about these experiences and these people and these connections. That's who you want to be. And so I just thank you for that. I know we got to come back right now, but that's...
No, somebody wanted Petre's name spelled. It's P-I-T-R-E. P-I-T-R-E. It's a French sounding name. John Petre, world's greatest living surreal artist. Used to be Salvador Dali, and now it's Petre.
Wow. All right. 2 seconds. And we're back. It's Tom Chenault. It is the Network Marketing Leadership Show. I've got my little boy Adrian here, and I think you wanted me for your dad for quite a while, but I don't think you do anymore. I've never seen a guy look more at another man that's my age going, I think I want him for my dad. That is really, really cool, Mark.
So let me talk to that, Tom. When I'm 21 and I'm meeting Bucky Fuller, who's 71, Bucky he'd hold my arm when we'd walk around because he was a little tipsy sometimes. You know, he didn't exercise, even though he'd been a Marine Admiral and all that. Is it? And he always called me old boy. And I thought, old boy, I'm taller than you. You call me old boy. But he said, and the first time I drove him home he said, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, pick me up at 4. I thought, you're really kidding me, aren't you? But he only slept 2 hours a night. He was ready, dressed, and wanted to go back to work. And, you know, I was sleeping 6 hours a night, and I thought that was enough. But he could sleep 2 hours a night and just our president sleeps that much. Elon Musk only sleeps 2 or 3 or 4 hours a night. Yes. So there are a lot of high performance people that shrink down the amount of sleep they need and wake up different parts of potential. Because what Adrian's really talking about here with us is, how do you wake up your full potential? How do you wake up your full beingness? How do you make your soul be on fire so you're alive and firing on all cylinders every second of your life? Because life is here to make it into a masterpiece, but we do it one at a time.
Wow.
So well said.
Yeah, and all of you watching, I mean, go get these books. I mean, if you don't buy the book about writing the book after you get your story and craft your story and read this thing, you're out of your mind. So go buy the book right now. He doesn't have to, that way he's not going to have to worry about selling 1 million between here and there. We're going to get him on some radio shows. We're going to get him with some people, because Mark Victor Hansen has a lot to say. And he sold 500 million books. And this morning my phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I answer it, I go, hello, Tom, Doc Wallach. I go, he's like, you guys are all, you people that are world changers, don't sleep, because there's a world to change. And it isn't about the money, it's about the legacy and the work that needs to be done while you're still on this planet, Mark. That's what you're about.
By the way, because perfect, Tom, we never talked about a legacy of why you write a book. A book is the greatest legacy that you give your kids, your friends, and your fans. Now, 2 levels of it. First of all, because I'm a scholar in books, obviously, and one of my estate attorney also did a little guy named L. Frank Baum. Do you know that name? Wrote The Wizard of Oz.
Whoa.
Right? But it's 150 years later, and his estate still makes $150 million a year in costumes from all that.
You're kidding.
And you say, well, how important is a book? Well, let's talk about it. Jack and I are rocking, but we're meeting every week, and we're spending a couple days together writing all these books, and we're selling books and writing books, selling books and writing books. But one weekend I had off, and I read Steven Spielberg's book and George Lucas's book in one weekend. I went into Jack's office on Monday because we were working at his office. Sometimes he came down to mine. He was up in LA, and I'm down in Newport Beach at that time. I'm now in Scottsdale. And I said, hey, Jack, we're going to become the biggest of book licensing. He said, what do you know? I said, nothing. He said, then how are you qualified? I said, Bucky taught me everything's a system, and you're either, let's say a system's a circle, we're outside the circle, but we're going to get inside. He said, well, why are you so turned on? I said, well, look, Lucas and Spielberg made $800 million with E.T., but they made $1.5 billion on licensing. So licensing is the better of the two businesses, but you got to do the one business, do the other. And in a year and a half, I went from nowhere to owning I am the world's biggest licensor. We've done $1 billion worth of licensing. Just in chicken soup that sold dog food, we sold $157 million worth of dog food. We get 15%. I don't have to eat it. I don't have to manufacture it. I don't have to distribute it. I don't have to do anything. And people say, well, how did it work? Well, I said, I tried Purina. They didn't want me. But I'm rejection proof. Every one of you in network marketing, you got to tell yourself I'm rejection proof. And when somebody rejects you, you just say next, because somebody out there is going to buy it. The first law of Emerson's essay on compensation says every act is its own reward. So if you call on 10 people today and nobody buys, you got 10 sales that are going to come. They're going to come from places you can't predict. So we had these guys fly in from a little company I'd never heard of called Diamond Pet Foods. And they said they flew in their Gulfstream because the pet food business, big business. People love their dogs more than their spouses. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I got my dog in here sleeping with us. We got a little, a little female dog named London here, an Yorkshire Terrier, who's just beautiful and loves everybody, but helping me do the seminar with you. But anyhow, so they come into and they say, I said, look, I just did that Purina meeting and the food's got to be organic. It's got to taste good. And at the time we had 88 animals on an acre because my daughter was becoming a veterinarian. I said, the dogs have got to like it. I said, these guys did this pet food. It went to #1. It was well packaged, well put in. It was at the counter sale, but it didn't sell. And the president finally comes in a month later and says, what happened? He said, the dogs don't like it. Well, so look, you guys, if we're going to do this, we're going to test it on my 4 dogs. And if they don't like it, I'm not doing this with you because I'd studied Paul Harvey, who you remember was big in your business and just did the best 2-minute stories ever. And he twisted at the end. I still don't know how he could write it. And he lived here in Arizona, and although narrated in Chicago. But Paul said, look, Mark, if you're going to do product, make sure you love the product. Don't advertise anything you don't love and believe in. And we killed it. We did little booklets in our packaging. It killed the dog food market, and it's still selling like crazy.
All right, we got to get out of here. I am telling you, people, if you don't buy this book today, you are out of your mind. Mark Victor Hansen is our man, and I can't even believe how happy, how lucky, how fortunate we are to have had him, and we're going to have him 2 more times, so make sure you're sticking around for that. Mark, we love you.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. See you next time.